Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Rob in the Abyss, and we are into 2002. And as we predicted, we are getting to that point where a lot of the movies we're going to talk about are pretty good, decent, not great. There are some good ones in here, but we are starting to see the decline in filmmaking. Still some great acting performances and some good stuff, but we are definitely getting to that point that I talked about in the early 90s. I jumped ahead a little bit. It's the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. Anyways, a couple I wanted to mention that I don't own on DVD or Blu-ray. The pianist, Adrian Brody, in his Academy Award-winning role, phenomenal, did an amazing job. My dad, who was a DJ before he was an actor, and then of course that segued into acting, later on went back to DJing for a little bit on K-Earth. And when Adrian Brody had done this movie, my dad had him on it for an interview, and he talked about just getting in there and being natural and understanding the period of time and dealing with that and World War II Germany and all of that kind of stuff. And it helped him just be natural in the situation. And it's great to bring that up because that's what we are working on in class right now. We are working on understanding a period of time, dealing with it, and making it believable. And that's what he did, and he was phenomenal in it. Another movie that I don't own that I've seen several times, Unfaithful. Diane Lane is off the charts. She is so good in this that I get so frustrated and mad watching it because of her decision making. And that's good acting when you can, be that believable. And then the third one's a movie called The Emperor's Club, starring Kevin Kline and Emile Hirsch. Kevin Kline's a teacher at a private school in the early 50s, I think. And Emile Hirsch is one of his students and is kind of in the wrong direction, and he tries to mentor him, and it actually makes for a really good movie. I'm surprised I don't own it because I really like Kevin Kline and I enjoy the film, so I will probably be making a purchase in the next day or two, but I wanted to point those three out. Another one I wanted to point out that I missed from 2001, Vince Vaughn, Jon Favreau made this their second one they did together after Swingers. Kind of reverse the roles. In Swingers, Vince Vaughn is kind of the cool guy, and Favreau's kind of the softy. Well, I wouldn't say that Vince Vaughn's kind of the softy in this. He's kind of a goof in it, and then Favreau's kind of the tougher guy, the smooth guy. And then Peter Falk's their boss, and he does a great job. There's some great outtakes on this of them, trying to do the scenes and stuff, and it's really good. So if you get a chance to see the outtakes, but then also watch the movie, it's worth it. Okay, so moving to 2002, I'm going to start with a comedy, Showtime, Robert De Niro, Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy's an actor, De Niro's a cop, and they come up with this reality TV show about cops. And so, Eddie Murphy's always trying to hustle for his acting, and then De Niro, of course, is just trying to do his job. Rene Russo plays the producer of the show, which they call Showtime, and it's a decent comedy. The best part of the movie, and it makes it worth watching, is when William Shatner plays William Shatner and tells them and shows them how to be a TV cop. It's hysterical, and like I said, that alone is worth giving it a watch. Next up, we have Reese Witherspoon, Sweet Home Alabama, starring Patrick Dempsey, and then Courtney Gaines, who was with Patrick Dempsey in Can't Buy Me Love. He was in Children of the Corn. Several things. You've seen him. Tall, lanky kid, redhead, freckles. You wouldn't miss him. Anyways, quick story about Courtney Gaines. I remember a long time ago, I was auditioning, and anybody's ever been in an audition room, they're the long hallways and the paper-thin walls, and you just sit across from each other on benches waiting for your turn. And he came in to read for something else. He was across the hall. He looked at me. I knew who he was because I'd seen him and stuff, and he kind of just gave me the hey, and I'm like, hey. He gets called into work before me, or the audition. He goes in, leaves, walks by me, goes, later, and like, see ya, and that was it. And it was a good lesson because it shows you this is their job. This is what they do, right? Actors go in, they audition, and they leave. They don't put the pressure on themselves. They don't make every audition the be-all, end-all. They just do their stuff. And that's what he did. And it was a great lesson as a younger actor seeing that because I had seen him in stuff, and it was before this even. But just they go in and they do their stuff and they go home. And that's what you have to learn, that every audition can't be the be-all, end-all. It's just part of your job. And that's what he did. And it was cool. And he's had a really good, consistent career because of it. But anyways, Reese Witherspoon's adorable in this. Cute little romantic comedy. Next up, Transporter, Jason Statham. We talk about formulas all the time. He has the formula as the badass. And he's badass in this, right? Shoot him up, fight him up, do all that different kind of stuff. Thriller, action, adventure. It goes right along with who and what he is, and it's great. it's a good one to watch. It's the only Blu-ray I own of this group, which is kind of crazy because there's some good movies I probably need to upgrade to Blu-ray. But if you haven't seen this, you need to check it out. Our Denzel for 2002, John Q. Not one of his best movies, but he's good in it. And that's the thing. You're not always going to be in box office hits, but you can consistently be good, and that's Denzel Washington. It's like Tom Brady. It's like Wayne Gretzky. It's like Michael Jordan. Consistently be good at what you do. You're not going to score the same amount of points every time, or throw as many touchdown passes, or score as many goals, but you can be consistently good at what you do, even when you lose. And this is one of those movies that it's fine. If you haven't seen it, you need to watch it. But Denzel's really good in it, and you can just see it. I mean, look at the eyes. I mean, it's just, the presence is so strong. He does him, and that's why I want to bring this, John Q up. Check it out if you haven't seen it. If you have, whatever. All right. The Tom Cruise for 2002, Minority Report. Once again, following a formula that we're into now that started with the Mission Impossibles, the Tom Cruise thrillers, right? Action, adventure thrillers. This is just a twist on the Ethan Hunt Mission Impossibles. They are cops who have figured out how to solve crimes before they happen. I don't want to give away too much. And then he kind of gets caught up in being framed. Colin Farrell does a good job in this. I'm not a big fan of his, but he's good in this. And this is one of those ones I walked out of the theater. I'm like, what did I just watch? Watch it a few more times, starts making more sense, and it becomes more and more of an enjoyable film because I understand it. And like I said, it's now the modern era, the 2000s of the Tom Cruise formula. In the early days, it was the good-looking hunk, race car driver, fighter pilot, all the stuff that he did. And then it got fast forwarded into the action adventure thrillers, and it's pretty enjoyable to watch. Another action adventure thriller, Bourne Identity. Matt Damon, in his iconic Jason Bourne role, does an unbelievable job. And once again, it's just in that same vein of these type of movies like The Transporter, Minority Report, Mission Impossible, all these ones we talk about, where it's just a great thriller, action adventure, and it starts a pretty good series for Matt Damon. All right. 2002 introduced us to Spider-Man, finally on the big screen. I know a lot of people were not huge Tobey Maguire fans. I think he did fine. Kirsten Dunst is okay. Her screaming gets a little annoying. I think we all can agree about it. But really, Spider-Man is about William Dafoe as the Green Goblin. That scene where he's in the mirror going back and forth with himself is so eerie. William Dafoe is so consistent at being William Dafoe, and it doesn't matter what you see him in. He's one of those guys. He's kind of like a Christopher Walken, right? They have that look, they have that delivery, they have that being, and it just comes across. And as the Goblin, you see it. And when he makes the face and you see the human Goblin, it's pretty powerful. I don't know if he necessarily needed the suit. The suit's great, but he really makes this film, and it was a good start to the Spider-Man series. These first three are fine. I thought the middle two that came later were not that great, and I think the new ones are really well done. But this started it all. All right, so I was kind of in between which one to go at number one, but once again, one of the things I do is I kind of choose which one I watch the most. So our runner-up for 2002 is Catch Me If You Can, true story. This, to me, is the start of Leonardo really changing gears in his acting, starting to be more believable, more likable, etc. You got a lot of good actors in this. Of course, Tom Hanks is in it. You get a young Amy Adams. It's a great, interesting story. Chris Walken plays his dad, and the scenes with him and Walken are phenomenal. But it's amazing how this guy was able to avoid the police for so long, passing this counterfeit money. It's unreal, or not counterfeit money, but, frauding banks and stuff like that, doing counterfeit checks, But anyways, and then he ends up working for the government, helping them find people who do check fraud. It's an unbelievable story. And if it's on TV, I'm going to stop and watch it no matter where it's at because it's compelling. And like I said, the acting is so strong that, why wouldn't you watch it? It's just a fun, uh, true story with kind of that adventure to it. And Leo is starting to become an actor at this point, at least in my opinion. My number one, though, for 2002 is Ryan Reynolds, Van Wilder. And once again, we always talk about formulas. I never watch Ryan Reynolds and look at him and go, wow, this guy's a phenomenal actor. But Ryan Reynolds does the Ryan Reynolds thing really good, really strong. And he's very good at doing that. And I think Van Wilder is the start of that. Write that down, the delivery and the way it is. And you still hear that delivery when you watch stuff like Deadpool, right? He's just mastered it over time. This is a really funny comedy with some great moments, some great banter. And it's really enjoyable. And he does a really good job in it. And I love his banter with, I can't think of the actor's name, but it was the guy who plays the principal in Breakfast Club, is now his professor, and he has that banter. So you get the same guy who is in Breakfast Club as the principal, right? And then you bring him into him being a professor, and he's older, and he's still dealing with Van Wilder, Ryan Reynolds, the same way he dealt with those kids in Breakfast Club, and it makes it funny. And the way Ryan Reynolds uses him makes it funny, and it's just overall, like I said, a really good fun comedy, and really started Ryan Reynolds on that comedic path. So that was my number one for 2002. On the music side, going to be pretty quick today. Blind Guardian, A Night at the Opera. It's a little bit of a change of sound for them. They were a strong power metal band, and this kind of changes their sound to more of a hard rock, but kind of operatic to it at points. Right, and there's some cool stuff with piano and stuff in the music, and I think Hansi Kirsch has an amazing voice. It's funny because when I first heard Blind Guardian, I wasn't sold on his voice. I didn't know if I really liked it, but the more I listened to him sing, and the more I listen to their music and things that he does, I really enjoy his voice. I think it really is the exclamation point on the sound of the band. So I wanted to point this out, and it's a pretty cool cover as well. Next up is by far my favorite Red Hot Chili Peppers album, By the Way. And you know what? This could have been number one. I really do like this album with By the Way, Universally Speaking, the Zephyr song, just to name a few. It's a little bit different than past Chili Pepper albums that they had done. And that's probably why I enjoyed it. It's more of a rocker. It has some different changes and different sounds and different rhythms and beats, etc. And it has their sound, but it's unique in its own way. And I really do enjoy it. And like I said, it could have been number one, but the number one is a little personal for me. And so it's hard to beat when you have those albums that are personal. But I want to point this out. This is a really good Chili Peppers album. And I know people like the earlier stuff better, where it's like funkier and that kind of stuff. It's not really my taste. It's okay. It's good. I own it. But this one is really good, and you haven't listened to it, you need to. But number one is Rush's Vapor Trails. This is the return of Rush after being on hiatus for 4 years. And a couple tidbits behind that. Neil Peart, the drummer, had lost his wife and his daughter in the same year. His daughter had died in a car accident. His wife died of cancer. And he kind of just pulled himself away and kind of needed a deal in his own way. And there was a period of time where the other two members thought maybe that was the end of Rush. But one of the things he did in the 4 years away was he went and hired a drum teacher. Now think about this. You have one of the greatest rock drummers of all time going and hiring a drum coach to work on his drumming. And one of the things that this drumming coach told him was that he wastes his movements. By hitting down on the drum, you're wasting your movement. You should be hitting in circles because you're more efficient with your drumming. And he went back to more of a traditional jazz style and the way he was playing and hitting in the circles and going all that stuff. And when they finally got back to wanting to record together and do the start of Vapor Trails, he was so excited to show them his new style. So when he sat down and played, the other two members are like, yeah, it's you. It sounds like you. And at first he was like, wait a second, I just took a whole year of relearning how to play and you can't even hear it. And they're like, no, it sounds like you, which makes sense because it's still him playing. It's just him playing in a different way. So they still heard him. Once again, you tie that into acting. It's the consistency that you bring as actors where it's always you, but you differently. Then they got together, started playing some of the music, and then they could tell the difference because the timing was different, right? And now they have to adapt. Once again, connect that to acting. Now you have to adapt to the other person. And now, anybody knows anything about rock bands knows that the drummer kind of drives. And so they had to adapt to his new style a little bit, and it changed the timing a little bit. It changed the sound a little bit, just a little bit. Probably to our ears, we don't hear it, but to them, they understood it. And that's when they knew, wow, it is a little bit different. And that's kind of neat. And the result of all of this was a pretty strong comeback album. Starts off with the lead song, One Little Victory. And I think it's appropriate because them kind of getting back together and putting out this album and getting going again was One Little Victory. I love Ghost Rider. I love Earthshine. Those are some really good songs. I love Ceiling Unlimited. It's like I said, a pretty strong album. There was a little bit of a production problem. So when you listen to the original version of this, which I have, it's a little muddy sounding. They remixed it several years later and cleaned up the production in it, and it really allows for the music to come out. So when I got to hear it again, it was like hearing a whole new album because you could really hear different sounds that you didn't hear before because of the production. But I also like the original because that was the way it was released. That was the way we heard it originally, and it was what it was. That's just the way it is, and you accepted it. We were just happy to get a new Rush album. But like I said, because of all of this stuff, it's pretty personal to me, and so it's hard to beat this as my top album for 2002. Number one, it's Rush. Number two, it's their comeback album. And number three, it's all of this emotion of Neil's pouring out into lyric writing, and it's just, it makes for a really powerful Rush album. So for 2002, Rush's Vapor Trails. And once again, on the movie side, Ryan Reynolds, Van Wilder. All right, so 2002 in the books. We will see you tomorrow with 2003. Once again, I'm appreciating the comments. I love that people are leaving lists and having their own thoughts and stuff like that. And there's some movies in there that I'm like, oh yeah, I got to revisit that. I love that. So keep the comments coming. Once again, subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see you for 2003 tomorrow.